everyone, and welcome to an LSL tutorial with me, John Parker, and...
me, Jack Howling, and...
me, Cody Chronotis.
So, we are going back and doing more tutorials on LSL for you guys so you can experiment and do what you like in Second Life and perhaps build your own devices as well. This video in particular, because we've already covered some of the fundamentals regarding LSL, we're now taking a step forward into something a little more advanced in regards to HTTP requests. So, John, over to you, and you can start with the actual tutorial.
Okay then. Well guys, first of all, I'm going to give you a quick little brief what we're talking about. What we're doing is basically focusing on how to communicate with prims outside of one sim. So we've talked about listeners before, and we've talked about link messages and how they all happen within either the one object or in the same sim. Well, URLs can be used to communicate off sim and also with websites. Okay, so first of all, what I'm going to show you is how to do a communication between two prims using HTTP rather than listeners. So I'm going to first of all build a cube, and I'm going to put a script in it, obviously. And in there, in the state entry, what you want to do is you first of all want to request a new URL from Linda Lab servers. And to do that, just simply do LL request URL. It's as simple as that. Now we need to catch that URL. And to do that, we use an event called HTTP request. And the first parameter of that event is the request ID, which we don't really need to care about for this particular moment. Then the next one is the method, and I'll talk to you more about what the method is in a moment. And the last parameter, is the body of the text. So this will be for catching any HTTP requests from either a website or, in this case, another prim in world. So, first things first, you need to check to see whether or not you've actually been granted the URL, because there are points where Linda Lab servers will turn around and say, no, I'm not going to grant you any more URLs. Things like if the sim runs out of URL allocations, because each sim has like a max of like 20,000 URLs that it can hold, but it varies between sims depending on Linda Lab's configuration for that sim. So we do that by going if the method is URL request granted, then that means we've been granted a URL. So now we can store that URL for later usage. So up the top here, I'm going to make a string called URL. I'm going to leave it blank because we don't know what it is yet. And down here, the body of the request will be the URL that we need to capture. So I can go URL equals body, and that will set the URL to that string up there. Now, for this purpose, for this demonstration purpose, you wouldn't want to do this in the in production, but for this demonstration purpose, I'm going to go ahead and tell myself via LL say what that URL is. Okay. Now, the next thing you want to check for is whether or not you've been denied that URL, and to do that, you go else if method equals URL request denied. Funnily enough, now, if this happens, you can handle it multiple ways. You could either have it so that the script waits a few seconds, resets itself, which will then trigger another request, and just keep doing that each time. You could have it so it says a message to the user and then just stops, doesn't do anything else. You can choose whatever you like to happen here. I'm just going to have it so it says LL say failed to retrieve URL, and then just have it so that it just doesn't do anything else after that, just stops. Now if I save this script now, there's our box. So I'll go ahead and save. You'll notice it will say something in chat. There we go. We've been granted a URL, and that is the URL that we need to copy. So I'll copy that. And now it's in my clipboard for later usage. I'm going to go ahead and put it in a notepad document and store that for later. So now this object has a URL. Okay? But what can we do with that URL? At the moment, nothing. It's completely pointless. I've set up no way for the script to use that URL to its advantage. We could send messages to it, but nothing would happen. The messages would just bounce straight off the server. So we're going to go back into the script now and change and add a new method. Now, if any one of you have done web development before, you'll know that with forms you can have a GET request or a POST request. Well, the same applies with LSL. We have to post messages to the object. You can't get messages, you have to post them. But get can be used, but I'll explain about that more later. So we're going to go if method equals, and then in quotes, post. anything inside this block will be a message that has been posted to that prim. Okay, in particular to that script. So I'm going to say if the body contains test with a capital T, then I want it to tell me, the owner, hello, I received the test message. Okay, and then I'm going to save that. It's going to give me a new URL. Each time you reset the script, it will automatically allocate a brand new URL, and it will release the older one. But I will tell you about releasing URLs later, because that is very important, as it says on the wiki. I'm going to replace the URL that I have on my Notepad document, because that's useless now. The other one's gone. And now I'm going to close this one and make a new object. This is going to be the guy who's going to communicate with the other one. Okay? So we make a new script. And for state entry, we don't really need that just yet. So on the touch event, I'm going to have it send a message using the LL request function. Okay? In the quotes, I'm going to put that URL that I was given. After that, I'm going to specify the method. I'm going to do that in square brackets because this is a list. Because you can specify other options in this list, but we don't care about those at the moment. We're just going to specify the method. So we're going to use post because by default it uses get. And I'm going to put our test message as the body. So to clarify, it's URL, your options, where I'll specify the method, and then the body of the text we want to send. In this case, we're going to post test. Now I'm going to save that script. And then when I click this, it will send a message to this object via HTTP. And there we go. Hello, I received a test message. Now, if I take that object into my inventory, okay, and I go to a different sim, so I'm going to go to where shall I go? I actually don't know where to go. Cardiff. Okay, so I've gone to a different sim now. We're in a completely different one. We're in the Galaxy rather than the Hermosa Tierra. And I res that object out. Okay, can one of you guys... oh, wait. No, I don't have to. I can just click it because it should own a say if I'm quick enough. So if I click it, there we go, look. I've received the message still. And that's coming from the other object on the other sim. I have to be quick there, though, because LLONSA does stop working after a while, after you've gone away from the sim. Okay, so I'm going to go back now.
That's interesting how the LLONSA actually gets taken away after a short period of time. What's that? Is that Linda Love's way of doing things?
Yeah, LLONSA and LL Region say, I think, but I think LNSA is the one that persists. I haven't checked, but... So
is it like a temporary thing that they
yeah, if you leave the region, then it'll work for a few more seconds.
Right.
I think it's a minute or something, and then it'll stop after a while.
Okay.
So there we go, guys. But that demonstrated to you that I was in a different sim altogether, but we still was able to send the message and still receive the message from this box. So, as I said, you can do a GET request, but they are... The only way I would personally use them is as a little tiny mini web server in Second Life. But I mean mini, because you can't do much with GET requests. You can't send anything via a GET request for a start. So let me just show you what that's like. If I add a new method here, with the GET as the method, I can send a response using LLHTTP response with the request ID, an error code of 200, which in HTTP is OK. And whatever I put in these quotes is what will return on the web browser. So, hello, this is from in-world object, or an in-world object, I should say. Okay, and I save that. So every time the box receives a GET request, which would be like if you go to it, the URL directly in your web browser, it will return that sentence. So let's go ahead and take that URL that I've just been given and click on it. And there we go. Hello, this is from an in-world object. Okay?
Not bad.
Now, as I said, this is a really, really mini web server. You can't use it for special things. The best you can do really is to send a message. Like if you want to name the object something and you want people to know what that URL means, that's where you can do that. It's pretty much useless after that point. But, you know, the option is there should you want it. Right. So we've talked about how we can send a message between multiple prims. That will apply to attachments as well. However, attachments get allocated a different amount of URLs. I think it's a much, much shorter amount. So you can have a HUD that uses the URL. But the thing is, when the region restarts, when you teleport, the URL will release. It will release itself. It will be useless. The script has to reallocate a new URL each time you teleport. Each time you leave the region.
So, how would you get either a permanent URL or get it to change automatically?
Well, as you change region, it will automatically release the URL that it previously had, which will happen automatically by Linda Lab, and then you request a new one. And then to keep that URL, to let other objects know about that URL, you would use a database.
Right.
Okay. Now, I can't go into detail, obviously, about setting up a database and all that in this video, but what I can show you is how to send requests to a website. And I've got up on my other screen here a test file that I've put on my website, which I'm going to open up on this screen now. Okay, this is a blank PHP file.
Yep.
And I'm not going to go into detail about what I'm typing, but I'm just going to basically write a simple script that is going to display the contents of a file on my website. And to do that, I'm going to go echo file get contents test.txt. Okay, that's going to read a test from my server. Okay, so I will save that and publish it. There we go. Yes. Oh, it's blanked it. Hang on. It's alright, FileZilla. Do that right. Okay, guys, so that's what we're going to have. That's for displaying the text. I'm then going to write another PHP file, and that's going to be what accepts the request from Second Life. So I'm going to call that sl.php. And in here, I'm going to say, right, this is where we do use GET requests, but this is because this is from the web server point of view. We're going to say if is set get I don't know, test, doesn't really matter what I call it. File put contents to write to the test file on our server, whatever we send it from Second Life. Okay, so that what will happen is we send a message to the web server via a GET request, which will then write whatever we put in the test file. And then we go to the test URL to see what the contents was. Sound simple enough?
Yep. So
in here, I'm going to have it so when I click the box, I'm going to go LL request http:// then my website address, and then where did I put this? /secondlife/sl.php. Then I'm going to put a question mark for a get query. I'm going to say test equals, because that's what I named it, get test. I'm going to say test message in capitals. We don't need any HTTP method part, so I'm going to leave those square brackets blank. And we don't need a body because we've already specified what we're sending there. Okay, so I'm going to save that script. It doesn't matter what URL it gives us, we're not bothered about that just yet. Now, when I click this, you don't see anything, but it should have sent it. I'm just going to verify that it has. Yes, it has. And now if I go to that link, jumpnetwork.co//test.php, there you go. There's the message. Okay? Very simple. So what you would do here is instead of writing it into a file, you'd have your PHP script send it to a MySQL database or any other type of database that you have set up, or even to a file. You could have a file thing. That will go into database, and then you can use the same type of thing to request the URL back.
Okay, I see where you're going with that.
Now, if you're thinking, okay, well, how do I get a response back from the website? You know, it gets a little bit more complicated from that point on, but I'll show you how it's done. At the top here, you go key request, or whatever you want to call it. I always just call it something like request or HTTP request, and I'd set that to the HTTP request, so I can keep an identifier to say, right, that's my specific request that I've sent. Then I have a HTTP response event with the request ID, the status of the request, any metadata, and the what's the last value? The body response, I think. The response body. Okay, And I say, right, so if the RID equals the request key at the top here, tell me what the PHP script said through NSA. Oops, I'll just put PHP on. And save that. Okay, so at the top here on the PHP file, I'm then going to do an echo. And I'm going to print out to the screen, I don't know, a message like test message from PHP file. Now, whatever the PHP file echoes or prints to the screen, which you would normally see on the website as text, any output this box will receive as a HTTP response. Okay, so when I click this, it will send the request, get the response, and print it out to OwnerSite, which should do. So let's try it. And there you go. PHP test message from PHP file. Okay. So basically, in a nutshell, you've basically got to manage your requests and your responses using HTTP response event, the HTTP request event, and the LLHTTP request function, and the LLHTTP response function. And this is why I class it as advanced, because you've got to keep track of your URLs for a start, because they update every time the region restarts, every time you teleport if it's on an attachment to another sim. So that's the caveat from Linden Lab. It automatically clears those. And of course you've got to make sure you've got a PHP backend if you've got a database setup. You can use any other service type, like CGI or ASPX. But as long as you've got some place to send that GET request to store your URL, so you put the URL there, you see, and then you can get the response, or you can pull the response back if you're getting it from the database. You were saying, Jack?
Yeah, about 5 minutes ago. Isn't this a bit of a risk in a way? Because I can just do this. Oh no, you can't do it. Times, but
yes, there is. That's another thing. Thanks very much for pulling that up, Jack. There is a throttle. There is a throttle to how many requests you can send, and Linden Lab will shut your script down temporarily.
Well, I weren't thinking about Linden Labs in particular. I'm thinking more like if you're doing if you've got a database, for example, or such as myself, you've got your own personal web server. That's going to create quite a load, and not only that, but obviously it's going to result into a DDoS.
You'd have to throttle it yourself. I doubt you'd get a DDoS problem from it because you wouldn't be able to click fast enough. But
true, but
you can mess up with your scripting and cause hell of a problem. So it's always recommended, like if you send a request like that, maybe you could put like a small 1 second break after it, like that. If I reset that, there you go, Jack. Now if you click it constantly, it should stop you every second. So there you go. Look, it's trying to throttle it now every second. So that'll stop the script for a second and prevent too many problems, because there is a throttle and it will come up with a script error if you keep trying to send requests that fast. As you can see, the script's going to keep popping now every time for how many times Jack clicked the bot. But I'm not worried about my web server there, because I know GoDaddy would have a certain set of amount of requests within how many seconds to pull up a DDoS request, and I don't think that would be enough to trigger it. So that's fine. Now, there's one more quick thing to cover, and that is releasing your URLs. As I said, that is very important. When you request a URL, you take one of them from the allocation on the sim. So each sim has, I think it's roughly around about 20,000. But I could be wrong. That could be per sim. I don't know. And the more URLs you request, the more that number would dwindle down. And if that gets to 0, you'll block all products on that entire sim from getting a new URL. That was one of the worries I had when I first learnt this. I thought, what happens if I use all more? The truth is, when the script is reset or the region restarts, the URL will be released automatically. However, you can't rely on that. You need to make sure that you're releasing your URLs when you're finished with them and you want to request a new one. And to do that, it's very simple. You simply, I'm just going to do it in the touch event start, but you put it somewhere else. Actually, no. Let's do it the proper way. So if the region restarts or something, although this is pointless because it will reset it automatically, but just to demonstrate, if the region restarts, then you do an LL release URL, and you specify the URL itself. That's the URL string at the top there, not the value that's returned by LL request URL, because that function does return a key, but it's pretty pointless. The only thing it can be used for is via identifying it via that parameter there, but I don't bother with it. So you specify the URL that you want to release inside that function, and that's how you do that. So just make sure that when you don't need a URL, you release it first before requesting a new one, and it should be fine. But as I said, it does release automatically on a script reset or a sim restart. Just don't use everyone's URL allocations, otherwise they'll moan at you when their TARDISes stop working. So yeah, that is pretty much it. If there's anything else that you think that we should have covered, please do comment. And if you think that I didn't explain it properly, because I know that was a lot to cover in quite a quick succession, just ask in the comments below and I'll try and reword what I said. It's really hard to explain in such a short amount of time.
If need be, if people need it, then we could essentially do like a breakdown video. Breaking down each component for a, in a sense, for a successful HTTP request script as a whole. So, if you do need a breakdown video of each individual component to a HTTP request, just ask and we will certainly arrange something if need be. Okay. Yeah, so just make sure, guys, that in your state entry or wherever you need to put it, request the URL, save the URL via the URL request granted method, so you can release it later should you need to. Use post method for receiving messages from other prims or even JavaScript. If you've got a website that uses JavaScript Ajax, you can send requests directly to the prim that way. With JavaScript, however, you cannot receive a response. Anything else you can, but with web clients you can't do that for security reasons. Get requests for displaying it in the web browser. HTTP response events are for getting messages back from wherever you're sending it. If you do a hello HTTP request, make sure you get the response back via HTTP response. Oh, and in the post section of your method, make sure, I didn't do it in this video, but you should be doing it, send an LL HTTP response with a status of 200 all the time. If you don't, then any requests will probably end up failing, or your script just won't know whether or not the request was successful. It's all on the wiki, guys, but if you need anything extra explaining, please do ask. It's really hard to explain in a short video. And we don't have much time to record, you see. I can't be here for hours talking about the same thing over and over again. And as you can see, Cody and Jack are having a fun time in Second Life talking. Scallywags. Anyway. I'm just going to do this.
Now, in the next LSL video, I'm going to cover emailing, which is a much more primitive version of communication in Second Life. It's very slow, but it can be used to communicate with prims without having to rely on the URL system. The reason it's so slow is because it takes 20 seconds per request, but I'll explain more in the next video. So, until then, guys, I'll leave you with these idiots. Goodbye.
I already could hold that. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you folks for watching. If you enjoyed, do please leave a like or comment below on this video.
If you want more, on Jack's side is the last video and the recommended video that we've suggested to you.
To stay tuned for more, on John's right is the link to our channel so you can subscribe, and also we have a link to our website if you want more information about who we are and what we do. Until next time,
Take care, stay safe,
and remember,
let your geeks out. Bye bye, guys.